Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the last time I stood up in this House and the government was passing some legislation, I think it was on tourism, and I said it was good legislation. I was castigated by the member for Cashew Southeast because there is a thinking, there is a feeling that only one set of people want St. Lucia to prosper. There is a feeling that wisdom only exists in one side of the House, particularly in the brains of two individuals in the government, and these two individuals have control and power over everything. They know everything. They are everything else. And any time you say anything, they castigate you, and they look for all kinds of sinister motives. So the last time I stood here and I said something in tourism, I can't recall the thing. He got up and he said all kinds of things, but all good things come to an end. Mr. Speaker, I understand the situation the Minister of Commerce is faced with in terms of incentives and incentives for services. There's been a cry all over the world to involve services, to treat services the same way as manufacturing. Because I don't think many people know that a large part of St. Lucia's GDP comprises of the services sector. And the services sector did not get the same level of incentives as the manufacturing sector. Mr. Speaker, so I understand the conjure of the minister, but we tried this services business, incentives for services. He is the parliamentary representative for Labrie. Third time, three-star general, he'll win the fourth time and the fifth time. That's what.
Honorable member, don't get distracted.
No, I'll just answer his question. Because you see, he could not answer my question this morning. He still hasn't answered it, but I can answer his. And any question any of them ask me, I can answer. But
proceed, sir, proceed.
I asked them what happened to Mr. George James. They haven't answered.
Mr. Proceed, sir.
Alva is the parliamentary.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, remain focused and proceed.
No, I can't find anybody. So, Mr. Speaker, the teachers asking for you. The teachers, they asking for you, and the teachers in Anchipo. You understand? You see exactly. You see what I mean?
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Can't help yourself. Can't help yourself.
Remain focused.
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm very focused. They try to put me out of focus. You see, they've tried that all the time. I'm okay. So, Mr. Speaker, well, you see, the Minister of Commerce says he's not a politician, so he get involved in that. I applaud him. So, Mr. Speaker, so we have now to bring the services sector in line with the manufacturing sector in terms of fiscal incentives. When we were in government, that problem came all the time. Sometimes people came with services, hairdressers, spa operators, and they wanted incentives. So what we did, we give them incentives under the Customs Act, I think, where you waived customs import taxes, consumption tax and import taxes, something of that nature, because we could not take them under the fiscal incentives regime. There was a lot of discussion. On how you would merge and how you create incentives for the service industry. I think there's a body here called the Coalition of Services. They have been advocating that all the time. In fact, that was encouraged when I was Minister of Commerce. So this discussion, and you also had to deal with the EPA and CARICOM and all sorts of things that made it rather difficult to integrate the services sector into the whole fiscal incentives regime. So this legislation was long in coming. But there are a few questions that I would like to ask the Minister. What will happen to existing service industries? What will happen to the existing firms who are already operating? Do they have to apply for the incentives, or do the incentives come automatically? Because there are a number of existing services, accounting firms, and he called me. I don't have any accounting firm again, so I'm not involved in that. I'm out of practice. Yes, I retired. I'm a full-time politician. Full-time politician. So, what will happen to existing accounting firms? What will happen to the major firms in the country? Will they get incentives? Will they apply for incentives? Will they not be liable to income tax? That's a question I'd like to ask him. There is also this situation regarding mature industries. And the way we solve that is that we said that all the incentives that existing mature companies had, these incentives will continue as if they never ended. That was the way we tried to solve the problem with mature industries. So that piece of legislation would clear it and make it much simpler. Then there is the matter of subsection 5 in the legislation. And subsection 5 removes completely, it deletes section 6 of the Fiscal Incentives Act. Fiscal Incentives Act, an order declaring the approved enterprise, subsection 6, I noticed that you have completely eliminated subsection 6 of the Act, and you give Cabinet the responsibility to declare any company or any service industry an approved enterprise. Under section 6 in the old Act, it said that there were certain criteria where Cabinet would order declaring a company an approved enterprise. It gives several sections where it said, in determining whether an order should be made under subsection 5, Cabinet should take into account the number of enterprises already manufacturing or about to manufacture an approved product, the output or anticipated output of the enterprise. I noticed you have eliminated that completely in the new Act, and you've given Cabinet the sole power and the sole authority to do that. That is something that you could possibly explain why. There may be a different reason why you're doing that. But the reasons why, as detailed in the old law, I see no reason why they could not be in the new law, because you've transferred the power solely to Cabinet. Cabinet has the power to declare under conditions that, and you know, we run a government of Cabinet, because most members of Parliament are members of Cabinet. So the information that Cabinet has, Parliament does not have. So I would like to find out why was that eliminated, and would there be any conditions under which an industry would be called an approved enterprise. There obviously would be some loss of revenue, but that loss of revenue would be more significant if existing companies are taken in that legislation. So it's very important that we clarify whether the Act speaks to existing service industries or it speaks to new service industries. I think that would clear many things. In terms of the Act, Mr. Speaker, I would think that whilst we were doing the amendments, we could have a policy towards vehicles, because giving incentives of vehicles has always been a vexing issue. At some point, they say you only give incentives to specialized vehicles. The issue of vehicle incentives has been a vexing issue for a long time. Everybody wants an incentive for a vehicle to do their private business, and they say they use it for the company. I think we should try I know it's very difficult, if you could have a policy regarding incentives for vehicles. And whilst you were amending the act, possibly you could have thought of making that adjustment or that amendment. Speaking about creative industries, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that we've brought creative industries officially into the loop. But again, to assist creative industries, we used to do it through the Customs Act. But also, I just want to remind honorable members that this government donated equipment, engineering equipment, sound engineering equipment, to many people to help them. And that was the beginning of the influx of recordings in this country. It was the government through the then NDC that made equipment available to people. So that's where all the recording of music came into being. So I'm glad that you are continuing. So this is not this is new. It's something that I think is a good way to go, but that was started already. So those who tried to create the impression that the Labour Party government did nothing and we were a complete waste of time, these are the things that we did. So I think possible for us to remind that this is an extension of that work, and I think it was long in coming. Once we can assure ourselves that there is equity, once we can assure themselves that people are not afraid. I'll tell you something, Mr. Speaker. People have come to me when I used to practice and asked me for incentives, to apply for incentives. And I will confess to you, Mr. Speaker, I will never send an incentive in my name to this cabinet. Never. Because I am almost sure, if it ever came under the name of Philip J. Pierre, it will be put in the garbage can just because it came under my name. So I would hope, Mr. Speaker, that there should be, I'm saying again, I would never send any incentive or any request for incentive to this cabinet under my name when I was practicing. Never. Because if I did that, I know the treatment it would have got once it reached the cabinet. That is the level of faith I have in the cabinet making decisions. And I say that very, very seriously. I make no bones about it. I really mean that, and I believe that anything that will come in the cabinet under my name or anybody associated with me would be discarded and put in the rubbish dump. That's how I feel. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that we're trying to bring some level of transparency to these incentives, and I hope that they are these incentives. There is equity. There is no sense of political retribution, and all service providers, regardless of their political persuasion, are given equal treatment under the law. With that, I want to tell the Minister that that amendment is necessary, and it took a long time to come, but it's necessary. And apart from the issues that I've raised, I see no problem with it. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.